Okay, so this is going to be how I install the knife, get a mount ready, and so forth. So actually, it's going to be a little difficult one-handed, but bear with me. So when you grab the blade, you're going to want to see the lettering, you see the C. So you actually want to keep that straight. So kind of like this, as you can see. You can use either side, just depends on what you're feeling. But basically, once you get it in, you're just going to slide it in from this little side place. And then boom. So the orientation doesn't necessarily matter per se. It's good to just have a consistent orientation, so that's up to you to decide. But right now I gotta actually open these up. So open these all the way up, and that way it can slide a little easier, because these are screws that are gonna be holding down the, I don't know if you can see them, but you can actually see how it's lining up. So see that screw? The back one right there is actually too high, so I need to lift it a little bit so that way it can better slide into the mold. So there we go. See that? So now this is out of place. This needs to get fixed. So I basically just need to help set this up. There we go. See, now that fell. So we're gonna find a happy medium. So it's just a little bit of going back and forth, getting this all oriented. So it's kind of hard a little bit trying to multitask, but bear with me. Okay, so now that this is in place, you can actually start to adjust this. So as you can see, it just fell into place, and now it's going to start slowly rising up. So let's actually lower this. It's too high anyways. So you can maybe see it kind of like going down. It's a little messed up on this angle right there. So that's what the idea is. So you can lower this one too. This is a little out of whack, so I'm gonna have to play with this one a little bit. Let's see. There we go. Oh, okay, cool. There we go. It's just fell into place. So these screws are a little janky, as you can see. So it's now that they're fully to the bottom, you can actually start to raise it, and vice versa. So as you can see, slowly start to raise it. One of my focal points that I like to use is this actual back blade right here. This setter is even on both sides. So voila. As you can see, there's one here and one there. It's a little hidden by these blade blockers, but either way, it's very straightforward. I actually like to line them up, kind of get an overview angle, and it's a little out of focus, but once you get into focus, you can actually kind of line it up just a bit. So if you look on this side, it's coming up just right. So there's still a little bit of that back blade still showing, and I want to do that for both sides so I know that I'm in relatively the equal position. So this one's a little too low. It's a little dark to see. I apologize, but right there it's about lined. Okay, so from here it's actually very straightforward. Clean off the blade, right? Bam, you're ready to go. Except things that you're gonna want to be considerate of. So this actual knife is very, very crucial to the experience, because if it starts to wobble or jank around or jump around or skip, that might be one of the reasons why your sections aren't coming out consistent. So if you notice that some slices are perfectly at 20 and then some of them are like super thick, like 100 microns, then it's very frustrating. So one of the factors that can actually play into that is the fact that this blade might be not sturdy enough, because the problem is this blade, if it's not tight enough, will begin to wobble. So right now it's a little still janky, but this entire thing is loose, which is no bueno. So you actually couldn't find it from down here. So once this gets tightened, that holds this, and then this one should be locked in. Let me see. Yeah. So as you can see, this is completely mobile right now, which is not good. So I'm gonna actually play around with it so you guys can see what it looks like. And voila! See, there we go. Now, so clearly this one goes down. This one unlocks it. See, and that's why these numbers are here. As you can see, it'll say 10, 0, and 5. So you can lift it and cut at an angle of 5 or 10 degrees. I actually like to stay around 5. So that's my personal preference. But as you can see, it will actually change the orientation of the blade entirely. So it goes up, cut more sharply, more decreasely. I've cut out all different angles. It really doesn't make that big of a difference for me because I'm so used to it now, but depends. I usually just keep it even at 5, and then once you're done, pull this lever up, and then boom, it's now secured. This thing ain't moving. So be very, very mindful about that. And one of the other things that can happen is that these screws might actually get loose in the middle of a section. So now your blade is wobbly, right? You might not notice it at first. Sometimes it'll just continue to cut straight, but then you'll start like getting movement, and you'll realize one of these are like too loose, or it was never tightened enough. Either one of those, and then you will start getting this to move, the blade or the entire mount, which is no bueno. So just be mindful of that. Make sure this thing stays locked too. This will actually control the entire thing sliding up or down, and just do your best just to make sure everything's prepped and ready to go. No one normally touches this, so there shouldn't ever be a need to, but for whatever reason you can unlock it and move it around. And yeah, see, so this will move this entire thing up or down, but just, you don't really need to move this often, so just keep this as high as you can and keep that from moving. So that's basically setting up the knife. So as you can see, now you have your glass blade ready, your glass roll plate, right? So, and then you have your blade. So basically now this is going to come to the most beautiful co-dominant, coexisting, whatever relationship you want to call it, because now this roll plate is going to be your best friend. So you need to take care of this like if it's your mama, because what happens is that this blade is going to cut a section at a certain length, at a certain distance, whatever you want to call it, right? So the problem is, if you aren't having this alignment consistent, then you'll mess up your slices, you'll get skipping, you'll get uneven cutting, you'll get a multitude of things. And most problems can probably get trickled down to this one single part, because this alignment isn't perfect. So, and without being mindful of it, you really will continue to screw up your samples. Because if you're not checking this every so often or every couple brains, then you might realize that, hold up, this is exactly why all my samples are getting messed up. And the problem is, when you get to the area of interest, when you start to cut, this is a very big no-no, because you can eat, if you're not fully prepped and checked and ready to go by the time you get to the area of interest, you're going to be screwed. So that's what makes this very, very, very difficult. So what's going to happen here is that this roll plate is going to have a special alignment with the blade. So it's going to be blade right here. There's going to be a little space. So I think I can draw this out just to make it a little more clear. But there we go. So what's going to happen is that this blade is going to be at an angle like, oh, just kidding. Okay, basically this blade is going to be shaped like this, right? So think of it from this angle, so you can visually see what it is. The blade lined up, right? The roll plate. You can kind of see a little bit of the angle. It's a little blurry, I apologize. But essentially, if you're looking at it from the side, so the blade's going to be like this, right? This is going to be very crucial, because you don't want your blade to be higher or below the roll plate, right? So I only have one hand. So blade, imagine this is the roll plate, right? You want the roll plate to be right behind. So blade right here, roll plate. You're gonna want to have the roll plate slightly behind the blade, because you want the blade to cut and the roll plate to catch it. So it's kind of a game of baseball. You want to have the angle, the distance just right, so that as the slice comes down and like gets it, you want it to basically roll off the blade with just enough distance to catch under the actual roll plate, and that way it will roll through, right? So I'll see if I can draw that out later. But essentially right here, for example, this is too high, and you can actually feel it, right? So the thing is, you should have gloves, sorry, but if you push here, you should be able to slide down the roll plate, and you should feel blade. The problem is, this thing might be a little too high. So as you can see, I'm starting to increase the distance, as you can see in this little teeny part right there. So see how much distance there is? So you don't want that, because clearly you can see that there's roll plate and then there's no blade. See how far, like the distance between the blade and the roll plate? You don't want that. You want the blade to be slightly behind, right? So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna turn this back, and I'm gonna tighten it so that the blade is actually slightly in front. Okay, there we go. Because when you fold this down, you want this to touch. And right now there's a good distance. So I'm gonna try to take a view of it, see if this actually works. Probably not, it's gonna be a little difficult to see. But essentially it's gonna be roll plate and then blade. So it's a very minute distance. You're just gonna have to put your finger here and feel it. That's what I do. And then from here you can actually test to see if it's consistent, because you want this to be consistently lined up. You don't want this the glass being uneven, because then you're gonna get slightly a partial like cut. So it looks pretty straight from the feel of it. I'm kind of imagining what it looks in my head as well. So the roll plate's probably gonna be okay for now. So yeah, let's see. It looks about right. So once you get all this ready, you're basically good to go. So okay.